Hello, hello, hello. It is Tammy, and we are going to be painting sleigh bells in just a minute. But I made a little mistake when I was putting my pattern on, so I need to erase it and try again, which this works out fine. I can wait and see if I see any of you pop on. If you do, great. If not, know that we will have the replay for a while. And this is actually a really good lesson because sometimes, even if I have a pattern, it might not fit my surface exactly. So sometimes I end up being better off almost freehanding per my surface, but having a pattern as a guide is always a good thing. Now, when I did your pattern, I gave you two of them. Hi, Nikki. I gave you the one with the cluster, which is the one that I had originally done on my sleigh a while back. It's the same thing, it's just adding more bells. I'm gonna do mine with just 3 bells so we can spend a little more time on the bells. But when I put my pattern on, I put it on too low. And so I'm gonna try to adjust it a little bit, see if I can, and we will get started. So if you haven't seen it already, you actually already have a video in this group page where I went through the bells step by step when I did this little plaque that just has the 2 bells, and each time a bell rings, an angel gets their wings, from a Christmas movie. Why can't I remember which Christmas movie? Okay, I'm just tracing my pattern on. I'm going to put you down so you can see what I'm doing. All right, hang on. My phone did not like that. Here we go. It's a Wonderful Life. You're right. Right. Okay, let's try that again. So what did I trace? I don't know. I think I got everything except for this. Did I do this? Nope. We'll do that. All right. So it's not the best pattern trace on, but it'll work. Okay. A nice thing about having a dark colored background when you're doing something like anything actually, but the bells, is it makes it a real easy thing to clean up. I'm grabbing my original sleigh and taking you with me. And this is kind of what it looked like. And I'll pull it back often. Now remember, I did these bells when I was actually at a retreat. And so they're painted rather quickly and a little sloppily. So hopefully our bells will have a little more finesse to them. I'm going to set that to the side. I am doing mine again on a sleigh, but this could be on anything at all. I'm looking to see if maybe it popped on. And somehow this group got mixed in with a previous group that I did. And I went ahead and left the class on there from last year. So if you want to take a peek at it in the next couple days, feel free. Okay, so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go over just a really basic bell, both in gold and silver, just so you can see it. And then we're going to paint it on this lovely piece. I have all sorts of stuff going on in here with your kitty cats. So let me just find a clean page. These are all the bells that I was working on for a collaboration I was working on, but I want you to see you can have the bells facing each other and tie a ribbon around them. You can have one bow and put the ribbon kind of through them any way you want. You don't absolutely have to see the little loop-de-loop thing on the top of the bells, but it's kind of fun. The other little thing I wanted to show you before we get started, same thing, same basic technique. Now when I paint on glass, I don't do as much detailing, but you still get the same effect. And these I just hung from this little pine bough going all the way around the glasses. And I did gold ones and silver ones, and I just decided to add a pop of color, the red, because I had the red berries in there. So the same idea can be done on different surfaces. So let's go ahead, and get started with just doing the bells first. I'm going to grab me a quick different pad. I have just a few of these floating around. That is our new Cheers ornament. It'll be out soon. Okay, so I'm just going to set this one aside. And I'm going to turn this one this way. and we're going to start painting these bells. Okay, let me get this one going. We should be good to go if I do this. Okay, and here we go. Okay, so I'm going to start off with the gold bell, and I'm going to start off with antique gold. Now, any kind of a goldeny yellow will work, so like marigold would work, golden straw would work. You want to avoid a bright yellow because many times our bright yellows are very transparent, and an antique gold just has a little better coverage. Now, even though I'm not doing this on black, it's still important to have that base coat first. So use the brush size that best fits your bell. I'm going to guess at this one. So I'm going to draw a circle. I'm just going to fill that in. I tend to do my bell and then worry about putting the little hooky thing on top of it. Grab some paper towels. We had a very good weekend in our retail locations, which meant that we had to visit both of them this morning very quickly. Okay, I'm just going to wipe my brush off, rinse it real quick. I'm going to go ahead and just base coat the silver one, which I'm going to base coat with a gray. Again, just so it has a little better coverage. Do a silver one here. And I'll come back over it with silver, so just there's my base coat. Just wanted to give this a second to dry. Okay. So we'll go back to our gold. So what I like to do is to build up my shadows and my highlights a little bit. The highlights are a little less in this, but still. Let's start with, so we've just base coated our bell with antique gold. We're then going to start our shading, which is going to first be with raw sienna. Okay. And you're going to determine the center of your bell by how your bell is facing. So if it's just hanging straight down, I'm only going to see a little part of the bell. Let me see if I have one of those as an example. Like this guy's hanging pretty straight down. Okay. But sometimes when they're facing up, you see more of the bottom. So these lines can be anywhere you want. If I have several bells painted, I tend to do one side of the middle first. There's my little float of raw sienna. So I've just put a little bit of color and rinse my brush out so I can show you completely. So I don't usually do this with color on color. I usually do this with water, and I just pick up a little tiny bit and I find a place that I can just push it back and forth to get that nice soft floated color. And I do it down below first, and then I'm going to come back and do it above. So first the float is next to the line floating down, and then one on top. I've got my color next to my band and it's floating up. Okay. That's the first float on the gold bell. This is probably, if you are going to make your bell metallic, this is probably where I tend to go ahead and add a little metallic to my bell. This is glorious gold. Any gold will work. And I don't worry about getting it perfect. I want to make sure that, I get the idea that this is a metallic bell, but I don't have to go over my shading. I can just kind of add that little more metallic to it. Let me show you why we do this. Because if I went ahead and did this just with metallic, it's much more sheer. It would help if this was a circle for a bell. Apparently I can't draw circles upside down. It would just take several coats to make that really cover, especially as I was working on the black background on my original sleigh. But I will show it to you anyhow. You barely see the shade with that one. So to deepen your shading, you're going to go a little darker. So I go with burnt sienna. Another option would be cinnamon. Oops, where'd we go? Oh, no, 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 hang on. I lost us. We were just here. There we are. Sorry about that, guys. So I'm going to go with burnt sienna. Like I said, cinnamon would be another option. And that's what I did here, where I deepened the shading just a little bit. Or if you're separating, you might want to really emphasize where which bell is behind. Some people go down to a smaller brush. I tend to just use the same brush and just use a little less paint on my brush. So I'm just going to pull this down a little bit onto my bottom. Maybe just a touch up here, so it's got a little color. You can also give it just a tiny bit of a tint of whatever color your ribbon is. Like if it's a red ribbon, you might want to see a little reflection of the red ribbon in your bell as well. But for now, we're good. Then it has a couple little highlights. And the highlights can be done with a bright yellow and or a white. I've got both those colors on my plate. And with a little bit of yellow, I might just highlight the opposite side of my bell and maybe just a little bit in the center. Now, if your flat brush is too big to do that, go ahead and grab a round brush. And you can highlight your center a little bit here, maybe just a little bit up here. And then I tend to take the yellow plus white and kind of repeat that. So I've got that part. We need the little clanger part, and that's going to be done with black. The other thing you can do when you're painting bells, oops, my black doesn't want to come out. We're going to have to convince my black to come out, is you can have your background color, in this case the black would have been the same thing, be it. So if I didn't want to draw a full circle, where is my pencil? I had a pencil. My gracious. You could draw your basic shape of your bell and leave out the part that would be the centers of the bells and then just paint around everything. I think that's a little harder to do. So that's why I like to come back with black and a detail brush or liner brush, whatever you prefer. And it literally can just be an X. And then you can come back and add like a little bit of a dot to whichever ends are showing up. Or you can push your brush down, push, lift, almost like a little comma stroke. I'm going to push and lift. And that would be the part of the bell on the bottom. And then I'm just going to take a little gold and make my little loop. You can do your little loops now, or you can do them after you put your ribbon on. Let's just go over a silver one real quick. I'm going to be painting gold ones with you today, but it doesn't hurt to know how to do the silver ones too. Am I using a flat brush? Yeah, I did use a flat brush. Oh, your mom had a black sleigh with poinsettias? Oh, yeah, and this is not a great brush to be using to be floating with, but it's the one that I happened to grab. All right, so I did this one just with the gray. Let's go ahead and make it silver now, just so you can see. So I'm just going to use a little silver metallic and fill in that bell. Oh my gracious. I'm going to have to let that dry a sec. What happens when you float regular colors on top of a metallic is it does dull them slightly. It's not enough to be a bother here in this situation, but it's just something good to know that if you really want that metallic to show, you kind of have to work with the metallic shade colors too. So I could go to a darker gray, like a neutral gray. That's what I did on the piece down here. Or I tend to just brush mix a little black and white. So here's some white, here's a little black, and let's just make a darker gray. And if that's too dark, pick up a little more white. I almost brush mix, I probably brush mix 90% of my grays. I'm gonna see if I have a little better brush because this brush is not real great. Okay, so same thing, a little better brush, picking up a little bit of paint on the corner. I'm gonna find a place that I can just push it down on a plate or palette, and I'm going to create that ledge. And if it's not dark enough, it just means I need to add a little more black to it. You can go straight to black if you want. I like to build it up a little bit. For right now, it looks like we're going pretty much straight black. You want to keep it soft. And again, if you want to have a little more shade on one side, helps to have some paint on my brush. Trying to just darken a little bit. And it'll depend on if this bell is in front or behind. But the main thing is to get that little part that breaks it apart. And then a highlight, of course, in a gray is either going to be a lighter gray or you can go straight to a little bit of white. I'm going to lighten this part down. I'm going to just give a little bit of in the middle. Same deal. I'm trying to make this one a little different. Hello, Nancy. Hello. And I'm going to push down, let it fall off, push down, just like you'd be seeing the other part of it on the other side. And then I'll go back to my light gray and create my little loop-de-loop. If you want to shade that, just go with your darker color again. All right, so that's the basic bell. Now we're going to put them together with some ribbon. Sketch to your left on the camera. This one, you want to see this one more? I'm going to lift this one up fine. And you have this in the group too. But so what we did is we base coated the bell. We shaded it with raw sienna first. Then I came back with burnt sienna to emphasize that a little more. And then we added our little X in the middle and the little part that can hold your ribbon. Silver's the same idea. I base coated it with a gray first, with a light gray. Then I used a darker gray, in this case neutral gray, to do my shading. And the shading is next to the middle of the bell on both sides. So it's going to fade down and fade up. You can add a little deeper gray or even go straight to black to deepen part of it. The highlight being white. And if you ever get to a point where you don't feel like you can tell the difference between your bells, whether they're gold bells or silver bells, you can always do a nice light outline. The one that I'm painting on, this one. Oops, there you go. Same deal. All right, so I'm going to paint on the sleigh. And again, I'm going to show you the sleigh. These were the original. My sleigh is full of stuff. So this was my original ones that I did. And just clumped a bunch together. And I'm just going to do a few less on this one. Okay. Move this, move that. Here we go with our bells. And I'm going to try to paint these upside down. If I need to turn them right side up, I may. Make sure that's in view. Okay, so my first thing is going to be to just base coat my bells. And we're working with this ribbon too, so we will be able to base coat the bell, then base coat the ribbon, and move back and forth. So my bells are going to be base coated with antique gold to begin with. I'm working on this dark surface, so it might need to have more than one coat. But with any of our acrylic painting, we want to let that paint dry before we apply a second coat. So that's where it's nice that we can flip over to our ribbon. I like to leave just a tiny little gap when I'm base coating, especially knowing that I'm going to come back and add more color. I'm going to bring you down a little bit. Okay. Now, if I'm going to be painting my ribbon red, I'm most likely going to be giving it a ton of coats if I don't base coat it first with a color that it can pop off of a little bit. And I do apologize, but I did not grab an orange. So hold tight while I grab an orange paint. My grandchildren were here painting with me on Saturday and Sunday, so things are a little bit disarrayed. And it really doesn't matter what orange you use. You know, orange is going to be a pretty sheer color too, so that's why I tend to grab one that has a little more opacity to it. So this happens to be Canyon. You could even use the raw sienna or burnt sienna underneath it. I find orange makes it pop a little more. And then you're just going to fill in your ribbon. I just have a little bit of ribbon happening on these three. I wanted to simplify it a little bit. And this one's going to have some greenery that is going to be much better to add where you want, depending on how the ribbon and the bells go. I kind of call that the saving greenery. Because I'm just going to come up here. And you can tell that doesn't cover super well either, but it will really help when I go. If you're doing, so Pat says she's doing on a red sleigh. I probably would do silver bells rather than gold bells. What color ribbon are you going to do, Pat? White ribbon? Green ribbon? Let me show you. So there's the silver bells with the red ribbon. If you're doing yours on red, you could even do the white ribbon. Yeah, white. I think a white would be really good. All right. So I've given that one coat. I'm going to give both of those one more coat. I think they're going to pop a lot better if I do. So this is the gold. And just that second second coat covers much better. I'm going to show you a little cleanup trick too here in just a sec. As if you happen to not be on when it first popped on, I said I put my pattern on, but I put it on too low. And I was able to erase most of it, but I can still see some of it. So the nice thing about working on a base coated one color background like this is I can come back and fill in where I boo-booed. The other nice thing is if I needed to clean up an edge, when I'm all done, not right now, I'm just showing you, you can easily clean up your edges if you have a solid color background. It's a little harder to do when you're doing like something on a stained background because you can't clean that up. So you just have Q-tips handy. I'm going to go ahead and do one more coat of that orange here too. I actually felt, even when I did the original, that there were too many bells on that. It almost gets lost. Okay, so I've got that down. All right, now you need to decide for you which way your bells are facing. if I use the pattern that I gave to you, this would be upside down. And I would have one facing that way, one this way, and this one's hanging out. It doesn't really matter, okay? So I'm going to start with my raw sienna. And I'm going to pretend that bell's going that way. This one's going this way. So this one's going to go this way. And this one's behind it. So let's start with that. This bell's behind. So I'm going to shade next to this bell. This bell's in front. Always give those shades a chance to dry before you go right back over them. So let's just skip and go over to this guy. And we'll make this one go with that one, that one. This one's going to go this way. I'm going to make, that's the bottom part of my rim. See where I'm getting a little messy here? When I come back with my black, I can clean that up very easily. Okay, this one's going to be facing this way. So that's the down part of my bell. This one's going to be facing up this way. That's the down part of my bell. I'm going to need a little more paint. I'm going to give this a little bit of room to create that separation. I'm going that way. I have to rinse my brush and get some more paint. I will go back and look at all the comments afterwards, and if you have any questions, of course, I can answer them then too. I can reach out to you. Okay. And don't worry if they seem a little faint. That's why we're going to do it a second time with a different color. And even like this one, I can barely see that at all. There is nothing wrong at all with going over that float again. Okay. I'm going to let that float just sit for a minute while I go ahead and grab a red. Reds are very, whatever it is that you like. So you can go with like a primary red. You can go with Tuscan red is probably my favorite red for coverage. If I happen to have one here, that'd be great. Cherry red is a really bright red. Here's Tuscan. And I am just going to base coat my ribbon. And even though I've come in with this orange, I may need more than one coat. Actually, it's covering quite well. When we do classes in person, many times I would have had said to you to come with the bells base coated in the gold and the ribbon in the orange. Okay. All depends on what we're doing, right? How much time we have, how much time you want to spend with me. So I'm pretty pleased with that. But this way I can let my red dry. I can come back to my bells, rinse my brush out. So Pat, for you who are doing this, you would just have, this first one would just be a darker gray, and then you would move on to a even deeper gray, or you can go straight black. But just really make sure if you're going to go straight black that you're going to really, I'm using black for a second, pick up a little bit of paint, have a little bit of moisture in your brush, and really push it back and forth so it blends to a nice soft color. I don't need black right now. I need burnt sienna. So I'm picking up my burnt sienna. And this is where I want to deepen my shading. It doesn't have to be everywhere. I have to move this out of my way. So again, I do want to make sure I can tell that this bell's behind. I think before I do this though, I'm going to add my gold metallic. Sorry guys, kind of forgot about my gold metallic. Now they don't have to be metallic. This will come off as metallic on here just because of that dark color, whether it is the gray instead of silver or the gold instead of metallic gold. But I do want mine to have a little bit more metallic, and I'm going to do that before I deepen my shading. So I'm going to pull up a little here. Pull a little here. A little bit here. I'm going to have to come back over with my shading. That's okay. That's okay. We'll come back over. I'm actually going to hit that with I think we'll be okay. Okay. Let it dry. Let it dry. While it's drying, let's take a quick peek at the red. Do I need more red? I don't believe I'm going to need more red. I think I'm going to be okay. So I will go into my burnt sienna, a little bit of my corner of my brush. We'll let that one dry for a second. So I'm going to come under here again, and I'm going to pull it down into the bottom part of my bell a little bit. And I'm going to come up here and strengthen that line above. If you have a hard time floating, I'm going to do it on this guy just so you can see. I'm just going to take a round brush, really a round brush, and I'm going to thin this a little bit. Not super watery, but just a little extra water in there. And I can just lay this color down next to that band. Okay, maybe pulling a little bit down here. Rinse my brush out. Tap it on my paper towel and then just soften it a little bit that way. I like to use the corner of my brush. I find that I just get softer look that way by picking up just a little bit and then finding a spot to push back and forth. And I'm going to come here and emphasize underneath here. See how I'm picking up there? That just means that the paint below was not dry. It's savable, but we really should let it dry. So we may have to skip that for a minute because I don't want to keep putting, if I keep going over it and over it, it's just going to pick it up. And before I know it, I'm going to have a black spot. That's not the desired effect of the bell. But let's take a second while we're letting that dry and look. See how I've gotten a little fuzzy edged there? You can do this all at the end, or you can do this as you go. You might want to just clean up your edge a little bit. Even where I base coated my red. Went a little bit out of where I wanted to. I'm cleaning up my edges with just the black. I tend to do this pretty much all at the end instead of as I go because I might make more mistakes. Oops, there's no mistakes. I might have a few more design changes. And I may cover up some of that stuff with the greenery too. Like I said, I call it forgetting greenery. Okay, so still, I can tell you it's still wet. Another way to check your pattern or your paint is to look at it. Now I know we put metallic on there, but if it still has that wet shine to it, you don't want to go back over and base coat because you're just going to pick up. So those bells are okay. These two. This one's the one that's going to have giving us a little bit of a fit. So I'm going to go back to our red, and I'm going to show this as our example here. Let me see this. Where it's next to a bell, like here, we're going to want to shade a little bit next to it. If we want it to turn, the underside is the darker part. If it happens to cross another part of a bow, you need to distinguish a highlight, which one's in front, one's below. If it's below, it's going to get shaded. But right now we're going to worry about where it's next to a bell. And we've got 3 places where it's next to a bell. La, la, la. It's next to a bell here, here, and here. If it's easier for you to start with the red on your brush, then pick up a little bit of black and blend it. I'm going straight to black. If it seems like it's too much for you, you can start with like a burgundy color first. I'm just going to pull a little bit right next to my bell. I'm going to show you what it would look like with the burgundy too. So this is deep burgundy. Cranberry wine would be another option. You can see on my plate that this is the red. Let's see if I can pull this off right. This is the burgundy. It's duller. So if I do that one first, I most likely would not need to add the red. I could just do a little bit next to it. But you're not going to see it as much. But it's never a bad idea to build your colors up. So I'm going to go back to my little bit of black and shade next to my bell, shade next to my bell, shade next to my bell. If my paint is still wet from before, it's just going to pick it up. So, like there. It's not showing up. I do want to give this a turn. So I'm going to pick up the black in my brush, either with the red or just straight black. I'm just doing straight black. And I want this one to start turning about halfway in there. And I'm going to do like this and follow this ribbon. So I'll highlight the opposite side and then it'll look like it has a turn. Same here. I'm going to make it turn the opposite way. So I'm going to start about here. We'll start at the very tip and we'll just give it a turn. Now they don't look like much at all until you come back with your highlight. And in this case, our highlight can start with our orange. And it'll be just the opposite side of the shade to make the turn. In this little section between, we're going to take a little bit of that orange and just make a little bit of a mark in the middle. And it is actually easier just to tap it with your finger to help blend that out. And if it blends too much, guess what? We can come back and add a little bit of orange and just tap it with our finger just to help highlight that center a little bit. I'm going to tap where I seem to have lost the color here. I can still see my shading. I just need to leave that bell alone for a little bit. Okay. So going back to what I said with the steps, you may have to do the raw sienna or the burnt sienna more than one time. And you're going to be able to tell that by, does it look like this bell is sitting behind or not? I know we haven't highlighted yet, but I think I can definitely see there. Where I'm still going to have a little trouble is right into this guy. I'm going to see if I can just grab a little. And I'm going to do the just slightly watered down paint and just pull a little of the burnt sienna because it's definitely going to be shaded more behind this bell. Maybe we'll just pull a little more burnt sienna with my little round brush. Everything pops more once you have your shading and your highlighting done. So there's our shading for our bell. we're going to highlight with our bell. And I said I did that with, on the silver bells, you can either go with a lighter gray than what you base coated with, or you can go straight to white. I'm going to do a little yellow first. This is just primary yellow. And I'm going to highlight the top of this one. And I'm going to highlight a little bit on the bottom of this one so it looks like the shade, it's shadowing here, so it's going to be a little lighter there. Same here. I know this light is kind of going this way, so I'm going to let this be my much stronger highlight. And just a little bit at the top. Same with this guy, just a little more at that side of it. And then if you like or need to, go back in with the yellow plus white, or you can go to straight white. Oh, I forgot something. I did. You want to make sure you have a little bit of a highlight in your little center. And it can literally be a little line like that. I somehow had black in there. It was not desired. Okay. And pick up a little yellow and white because I want to just make this a little stronger. Okay. They don't look quite like bells until they get their little centers. So you need to use whatever detail brush works for you. And I'm going to go straight into my black. Remember, this guy's going that way. So I'm going to set this down. I have to think. Oh my goodness. I have to think. Sorry, guys. That's right. Okay. So I'm going to set it down and I'm going to pull it this way. I'm going to let it get a little skinnier. Then I'm going to go the opposite way. I'm going to push down and I'm going to pull it and let it get a little skinnier. You need to make sure you have enough paint on your brush so you don't run out like Tammy just did. If it seems like you may have gone a little too far, like I did on this one, it's okay. Just think about going back the opposite way. Just make a part of it so you can see part of that bell. This one's going to come this way. So I'm going to push down, make it skinnier, and push down, make it skinnier. This one's going this way. Why am I having trouble? Push down. Push down. So think of them almost like it's not a straight X. Red, that's not paper. You don't want to think of these as just a straight X so much as a curved X. So whether I'm just doing lines or whether I'm kind of making a comma stroke, I do want them to have more of a curve to them than to be straight up and down. Obviously, I have no paint on my brush there. Okay. I'm not going to worry about my loops on my bells until I start playing with my greens. Now, we're going to look at our ribbon first. And one thing I like to do is to pick up a tiny bit of my gold, in this case, for the ones that are doing gold bells, and go back and pick up just a tiny bit of the metallic gold on the corner of my brush. And where I highlight, I don't want to do the whole thing. I just want to hit a couple little spots. And I might want to even pick up a tiny bit on one of the little streamers. And it just kind of picks up the gold and brings it into your ribbon. And like I said, too, you can tint. I'll do one. If I pick up a little bit of red, very little bit of red, maybe on this guy, maybe I can just tell there's a little bit of red. Just lay down a tiny bit. Maybe he can see a little bit of red bouncing off. And that's just your light, how a light plays, that you can see a little bit of red on a gold bell because it's wrapped within it. Now, I purposely kept this incredibly simple so that we could come in and add some greens. You can make this a much loopier bow. You can come up and create a loop here or there. That's just a loop is merely going to be, we basically just have, changes. We basically just have a ribbon that goes like this. A little bit in the middle, and there's our bell, okay? You could decide that this part of your ribbon is going to have a loop before it connects back down to here. And it might even have a loop coming from this way. And they can cross or they can intersect. It's a really bad looking bow. Let's see if we can make that just a tiny bit better. So that could have been my loop. In this case, I would certainly want to make a distinction that this one is behind, so it's going to get shaded for the behind part. And it's behind here as well. I'm doing this very dark so you can see it. And remember, this would be next to our bell, and this is next to our bell, and we have a bell in between. Then what makes that pop is your highlight. This is a bad bow, but we're getting the idea. So if I highlight, oops, picked up the black, it's okay. But if I highlight there, grab my highlight. If I highlight next to it, it'll help it pop. So bows are just something to play with a little bit. Now what I want to do is to add some greenery to this. And you can, if you happen to like holly, you can use holly. I'm just going to do my kind of tap, 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 which is all I really did on mine. And how you can decide where you want it to go with a little help from a detail brush. Let's say I want to, I'm actually going to put my little loop-de-loos on. I'm going to put one little loop-de-loo here. I'm not going to worry about shading and highlighting this one. I'm going to put a loop-de-loo here and a loop-de-loo there. Just so I have an idea. Now I'm going to take my, I guess I could look at where I put yours. You can kind of tell when I did your pattern that I kind of thought some of these should come off of the loops, but some of them are just tucked in here and there. So I'm going to just take the green, any green. You could use Hazard Green Dark. You could use Black Forest. You can use a brighter green like a holly green. So I'm going to make sure that there's one coming off of here. You're not going to be able to see this very well to begin with. And I'm just going to make sure there's one coming out of each of those areas. Okay. I'm going to grab a flat brush. I'm going to put, this green may not show up on my black. I may have to go to a brighter green. So I've got half green and half white. And I'm going to keep my white out, up and out at all times. I got red on my brush, so we can't do that. We can't do this with red. Let's see if we're going to do this a little cleaner. So I've got green and I've got white. And I'm going to need some more white. And I'm going to keep my white up. And I'm going to go tap, 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 tap. And then whenever I wanted to make it go out, my white is going to go out. I'm just tapping. And it doesn't matter if I have little holes. Just pretend they're not there. So I made that it would be a sad branch. But it gives me the shape, and then I can come back and tap in to make it more full. So while I couldn't see that green as it was, by adding the white and keeping my white up and tapping it out and up, and then just decide how full you want each of those little branches to be. I'm I'm going to do one here, and then I'm going to start adding them where I think this piece could use some. So I'm going to do this one this way. I'm going to make it go this way. I'm tapping with my white up. Now my white is going out. I'm just going to give it its shape first. I'm just tapping. I'm not pushing down super hard. Then I'm going to start filling in where I want some more to go. This is, again, very up to you how much greenery you want, how much of an area you might want to camouflage. I'm going to make this one go this way. And they don't have to just be one branch. They can. We'll do it on this one. I'm going to have this go this way. I'm going to have one go this way. Because in a pine branch, they do branch off. Okay, and then it's where else do I want some? I think I might want one hitting over here. Again, I'm always tapping my white up and my white goes out. So that means I'm turning my brush both directions. And then I'm coming in and filling in where I want it to get a little fluffier. And it's okay if some of these pine branches come over your ribbon here and there. You have to kind of decide how much of that you want. I mean, this could get very full. Right in here, it looks like it's a little empty. So let's just make this a bigger pine branch. I've just made that a fluffier pine branch. I'm okay with that. And it doesn't have to be all the way. You might just see just little bits of it popping out. So that one's got a little bit coming out. I'm going to tap just a few little white and green bits coming out of this one. These are very easy to add just red berries to if you want, or if you would prefer there to be white berries, I would just use the end of a brush that has a rounded end and add your little dots. I'm going to do some red ones here. Red, red, red. I'm going to do a red one there. I'm going to do some red here, red. One dip, 3 dots are going to be 3 different size dots. And I think there might be one little setup here. Okay. I would let those dry just a touch, and then I'm going to come back and give them just a tiny bit of a white highlight. If you wanted there to be some cluster of white dots, you can do that too. I'm going to grab some white paint. I'm going to clean off the brush, make sure it's not red, because then I'll have pink dots, and I'm just going to go, I'm just going to do little clusters. Do a little cluster there, I'm going to do a little cluster here. Just this little cluster of dots. Okay. And if they get to be too big, I just bring a couple little ones in here. So I've got a couple little red ones, a couple clusters of white. And I said I would let those red dots just sit for just a sec before I come back in and just give them a tiny touch of white. And that's optional. Mine are not dry, so I'm just barely touching white next to them. Okay. What do you think? It's going to go ahead and give you some ideas. I base coated my whole side black. You could easily stop it about here and here. I'm just doing this with water so you can see. If I could have made from there, I just stopped my sleigh like that and kept my sleigh black and do paint the runners a metallic, or if your sleigh is white or black, maybe your runners are black or white or red, I meant. I'm going to leave this like this is, and I'm just going to use a small detail brush. I wish I had the other one. Oh, this will work. And I'm going to use the metallic gold paint, and I'm just going to give myself a little bit of a curve around my, oops, you didn't see that. Sorry, guys. Sorry. I just started here, and I just get them, and I'm going to come in again a little further down. And just whatever I do on this side, I have to do on the other side of my sleigh. So that's how I would probably handle that there. I don't know that I would, you can make it as detailed as you want. I think in here I would just kind of accentuate that area. And then I think I'm just going to take and do a little gold all the way around it. Up here would be the same thing if you want to have some extra detail on your sleigh top. I'd kind of make it, I kind of like those. So I think I'm going to do that here. I'm going to take here, I'm going to push down a big sweeping stroke, show you again. I'm going to do another one. And I think I'll do 3. And that's what I'm going to do over on this side too. One, 2, and 3. They'll never see both sides at the same time, okay? But that does kind of help finish it off. If you like that gold, you could bring in a little extra gold swirls. I don't know that I do or don't. I don't think I'm going to. No, I don't. I think I'm going to leave that one just as it is. So you can tell even with less bells, I'm going to show you this is this one, that we just have the 3 bells on. And you might need to come back and go like right here, it doesn't really show up enough for me. I might even come in with a tiny bit of black and just define that just a little bit. See? I don't have to define all of it, but just that helps kind of break that up. Or if I needed to do a little more definition between the bells, a tiny bit of black. And this is, again, I can go back with my black, and if there's any place that maybe I didn't cover my pattern completely, here I got a little messy with that gold. And my red can get cleaned up. And I don't know what that is, but let's just cover it up with black. And that just really helps clean it up. Now I'll do as close as I can on the opposite side. I don't like this one either. I'm just going to clean this up a little bit too. I'm cleaning this up with a little gold. Might need a little of this gold to clean that up with. It's got a little too big for me. But it's just paint, people. So if something doesn't quite work, look, we're going to make this one go away. It won't go away completely, but I can clean it up enough and thin down that part so it doesn't look quite as, this just didn't look quite right to me. So I've just gone back in with my gold. Make sure it's enough underneath. So I'll go into the raw sienna, burnt sienna. You can really tell. Gonna have to let that dry or it's gonna just pick it right up. I'm gonna let that dry and I'm gonna have to try to come back the opposite way. So I'm gonna stay skinny first and then lay my brush down. There. That looks a little better. Those are those little details we just play with until we get them the way we like them. So I have the other side of the sleigh to do. Sleigh. So this was the original with a lot more bells. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We just did 3 on this guy. I kind of like the 3 better, to be honest. And then I will flip the pattern the opposite way because this one is on the other side. And I want the bells to be on each side. You don't have to do it. Like on this guy, I actually have just my little white trees on the opposite side. So, you know, you look at that way that somebody has a choice. Do they want there to be bells or they want there to be trees? Okay, let me flip you guys up. Hello, hello, hello. Oh, I'm glad that breaking down the patterns helps for you guys. Okay, so this was sleigh bells. I do apologize for the time changes. You know, life does happen. But that is a pretty easy way to do the bells if you're doing them on a sleigh, if you're doing them on a sign. I think they're a beautiful accent to just a Merry Christmas with a few bells around it. I showed you how I did the same bells on glasses. Of course, I use enamel paint. That is my choice for what I like to use with a glass, and then I bake it. But there's all sorts of different methods to do that as well. Some people like to use the multi-surface paint. I have my best luck with enamel paints, and I do use the Deco Arts. So that's what I have for you for this lovely, lovely class. And when I get this side done, which I might just make myself sit here and do that right now, or it seems like those things never get done. I will come back and add gold on my edge. I just thought that kind of helped class it up a little bit. And I will show you what I add to it if I fill something into it. Guys, I went out and asked you guys which Santas were of appeal to you. And I said I would pick the top 2 and there was a tie. So I ended up adding 3 Santa classes for November. And I will have the events for those done later today. I have another class to teach tonight, and then you'll be able to go to Constant Contact and sign up for those. And I am doing, what am I doing? I'm doing the Moon Santa, we're doing the Watchful Santa, and the Smokin' Santa. All right, thank you guys so much. If you've got any questions, please feel free to reach out. This will be available on here for at least 10 days. I am doing my best to take down videos now so that they don't end up happening what happened with this one, where I ended up having the poinsettia class in here, which I have no idea. You know what? I'm not good with technology yet. The power of yet. Have a great rest of your day. Please be kind, be safe, and cheers. Bye-bye.